The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.
We knew it was coming. European perspective for Georgia without granting candidate status until the government adheres to all 12 reforms as the main preconditions for the status. What did the European Commission say about the EU membership application by Georgia? Overall, as regards the political criteria, Georgia has a foundation in place to reach the stability of institutions guaranteeing democracy, the rule of law, human rights, and respect for and protection of minorities, even if recent developments have undermined the country's progress. As regards the economic criteria, Georgia has achieved a good degree of macroeconomic stability with a track record of sound economic policy and a favorable business environment. In order to improve the functioning of its market economy, further reforms and investment are needed to ensure long-term inclusive growth and external competitiveness. In order to reinforce the capacity of the country to cope with competitive pressure in the EU, Georgia needs to strengthen, in particular, its human capital, particularly through education reform to ensure skills for the labor market and innovativeness, strengthen physical infrastructure, including renewable energy generation and transport infrastructure, as well as access to global value chains. As regards the capacity to fulfill the obligations of membership, Georgia has worked since 2016 on the implementation of the EU-Georgia Association Agreement, including a deep and comprehensive free trade area. These agreements already capture an unprecedented amount of the EU acquis. Georgia has gradually approximated to substantial elements of the EU acquis across many chapters. It has an overall positive track record of implementation, while in some sectors the country is more advanced than in others. Overall, Georgia has established a solid basis for further alignment. So what are some conclusions and recommendations that the European Commission has reached for Georgia? The Commission recommends to the Council that Georgia should be given the perspective to become a member of the European Union. The Commission recommends that Georgia be granted candidate status once the following priorities will have been addressed. Address the issue of political polarization through ensuring cooperation across political parties in the spirit of the April 19 agreement. Guarantee the full functioning of all state institutions, strengthening their independence and effective accountability, as well as their democratic oversight functions. Further improve the electoral framework, addressing all shortcomings identified by OSCE, ODIHR, and Council of Europe Venice Commission in these processes. Adopt and implement a transparent and effective judicial reform strategy and action plan post-2021 based on a broad, inclusive, and cross-party consultation process. Ensure a judiciary that is fully and truly independent, accountable, and impartial along the entire judicial institutional chain. Also, to safeguard the separation of powers. Notably, ensure the proper functioning and integrity of all judicial and prosecutorial institutions, in particular the Supreme Court, and address any shortcomings identified, including the nomination of judges at all levels and of the Prosecutor General. Undertake a thorough reform of the High Council of Justice and appoint the High Council's remaining members. All these measures need to be fully in line with European standards and the recommendations of the Venice Commission. Strengthen the independence of its anti-corruption agency, bringing together all key anti-corruption functions, in particular to rigorously address high-level corruption cases, equip the new Special Investigative Service and Personal Data Protection Service with resources commensurate to their mandates, and ensure their institutional independence. Implement the commitment to de-oligarchization by eliminating the excessive influence of vested interests in economic, political, and public life. Strengthen the fight against organized crime based on detailed threat assessments, notably by ensuring rigorous investigations, prosecutions, and a credible track track record of prosecutions and convictions, guarantee accountability and oversight of law enforcement agencies, undertake stronger efforts to guarantee a free, professional, pluralistic and independent media environment, notably by ensuring that criminal procedures brought against media owners fulfill the highest legal standards, and by launching impartial, effective and timely investigations in cases of threats against safety of journalists and other media professionals. Move swiftly to strengthen the protection of human rights of vulnerable groups, including by bringing perpetrators and instigators of violence to justice more effectively. Notably, consolidate efforts to enhance gender equality and fight violence against women. Ensure the involvement of civil society in decision-making processes at all levels. Adopt legislation so that Georgian courts proactively take into account European Court of Human Rights judgments in their deliberations. Ensure that an independent person is given preference in the process of nominating a new public defender, ombudsperson, and that this process is conducted in a transparent manner. Ensure the office's effective institutional independence. The Commission says it will monitor Georgia's progress to address these priorities and report on them by the end of 2022. In the end, here is the timeline and key dates for Georgia. On March 3, 2022, Georgia presented its application for membership of the European Union. The application was tabled in the context of Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine. On March 7, 2022, the Council of the European Union requested the Commission to submit its opinion on this application. EU heads of state and government endorsed this decision at the informal leaders meeting in Versailles. Georgia received questionnaires on April 11, 2022 on the political and economic criteria and on April 19 on the EU AKIS chapters, and provided its replies on May 2nd and on May 10. I said we knew it was coming because the recommendation already said it all. But we, the people of Georgia, grabbed the last chance that we had and hit the main avenue in Tbilisi in front of the Parliament of Georgia to show the world that we want to come back home, and our home is Europe.
Dear members of the Council, as you're about to decide the European future of our country, we, the representatives of the Georgian people, would like to kindly remind you that Georgia is one of the oldest European nations. Throughout centuries, we have never questioned our European destiny and made everything possible to approach the dream of every single generation of this country, to reunite with the European family. We have believed in Europe more than anyone else throughout the last 3 decades after regaining of our independence, and paid an ultimate price for our European choice. We believed in you more than anyone else, since with your uninterrupted help, we were able to start the rebuilding of our nation. We believe in the future of Europe, since there has never been any better alternative for us. Now, when the most important step on our European path is so near, we hope that you will believe in us more than anyone else. And Georgia, and grant Georgia the candidate status together with our friends, Ukraine and Moldova. Georgian people has earned the European perspective long ago and now deserves to be accepted as the candidate country of the European Union. All of us count on your support.
Since 1992, with the establishment of diplomatic relations between Georgia and the European Union, the EU has supported Georgia through a wide range of instruments and has become the biggest donor to Georgia. Under the Multi-Annual Financial Framework, MFF, the total amount of EU assistance to Georgia exceeds €1 billion. In addition, the EU helps the country with separate programs, grants, soft loans and financial instruments. The last 7-year cycle of the MFF, which covers the years from 2014 to 2022, was focused on the economic development of Georgia, the development of state institutions, social challenges, and the implementation of infrastructure projects. Under the multi-annual framework for 2014-2022, Georgia received financial assistance of around 119 million euros, that's about 2.5 billion lari from the EU. Under the MMF for 2007-2013, Georgia received 452 million euro, that's about 1.4 billion lari, in assistance. In this case, the EU's top priority was to promote democratic governance and the rule of law in Georgia. In addition, the EU has assisted Georgia in attracting investment, regional development, social projects and reforms. According to the information provided to Forbes Georgia by the EU delegation, the current cycle of the MFF, which covers the years 2021-2027, has not been fully agreed yet. Therefore, it is still too early to talk about future funding. In addition to bilateral assistance, Georgia also receives macro-financial assistance from the European Union, including grants and soft loans. Under this program, Georgia received 75 million euro in 2021, and the government refused to accept another 75 million tranche. The amount of aid received in 2020 was 75 million euros, while in 2018-2019, Georgia received 45 million euro. In 2011-2015, Georgia received 46 million euros from the EU. In addition to the above project, Georgia received an additional 250 million from the European Union to deal with the COVID pandemic. The logical question is, of course, to ask what type of financial support might Georgia lose without candidate status. To be frank, it is hard to find one answer. Looking at different analysis of different diplomats and analytics, here's what type of conclusions we have drawn. All analyses include the access that candidate countries have to the pre-accession financial instrument funds, that's IPA 3rd 2021-2027, which includes 14 billion euros and 5 thematic areas: strengthening institutional and administrative capacity, candidate and potential candidate, cross-border cooperation, candidate and potential candidate, development of rural and community settlements, candidate only, development of regions, candidate only, human resource development, candidate only. Some analysis also includes the Economic and Investment Program 2021-2027, which provides mobilization of 30 billion euro from international financial institutions, EIB, KfW, EBRD, WB, IMF, etc. And the private sector, 9 billion grant and 20 billion investments of financial investments, as well as investments in the following areas: transport, private sector development, human resources, and so far. Candidate countries might have access to all EU programs. Today, we have access to only a small part out of 11 programs such as Erasmus+, Horizon 2020, Creative Europe. Also, the so-called funding from the EU Neighbourhood Development and International Cooperation Instrument, NDICI, funds might be available, amounting to euro 19 billion for 2021 to 2027. Elguja Khokrishvili, Georgia's former ambassador to Germany, for example, wrote that the use of this financial assistance will depend on the individual progress made by the candidate countries on the path to European integration. Utilizing these opportunities will have an incredibly tangible impact on increasing the well-being and quality of life of every citizen of Georgia. According to the World Bank, wrote Khokrishvili, using these opportunities in the Western Balkans, Ukraine, Moldova, Georgia were not considered for the status during the study period, can generate not only 6.7% economic growth, but also a large increase in foreign direct investment in these countries from EU member states. According to the former ambassador, the European and Euro-Atlantic integration of the country is the choice of the Georgian people and the constitutional obligation of the government to go towards it. Let us recognize the conditions presented by the European Commission and start fulfilling them immediately, Khokrishvili wrote. Meanwhile, this is how the ambassadors of the EU and France evaluate Georgia's European perspective and the aspirations of Georgian people who stand firm in their decision to bring Georgia back to Europe.
What I saw yesterday was a very large, dignified and peaceful manifestation of Georgia's pro-European choice. And leaving some of the comments of a political nature aside, for which I will not make comments other than to say that, as always, staying within lawful and peaceful means are essential. What I heard yesterday was many ordinary Georgians coming out wishing Georgia to seize the moment and embrace the opportunities that have been given now from the European Union side and take the right steps forward in order to de facto and in reality move Georgia's European agenda forward. If I may just recall what the Commission said last Friday, which was to open a European perspective for Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia, which is not to be missed, a very clear yes from the European Commission that Georgia has the potential to become a future EU member. And yesterday we heard President Michel, who is well known in this country, also stressing that now is the time to acknowledge that Ukraine, Moldova and Georgia has its future within the European Union. So these are powerful messages, and at the same time, as we know, the opinion for Georgia was less favorable than the opinion for Ukraine and Moldova, which underlines the need now to take resolute steps forward to demonstrate these aspirations. And for that we have a to-do list, if you'd like, from the European Commission saying what are the requirements for Georgia to advance. And I'm hoping, and we will see in a few days' time, if member states in the European Council will conclude the same as the European Commission, after which I think the message is very clear. Georgia's European destiny is in Georgia's hands, and it's time to work diligently to take the necessary steps to move the agenda forward.
What is being proposed, there are some grounds for hope and for mobilization and for optimism, because there is the recognition of the European perspective, and that is a very significant step forward. There's a clear roadmap of reform on how to move ahead, so that is two very optimistic, very positive result. It cannot come as a surprise that the EU also has expectations, and those cannot come as a surprise either. So what we want to see is mobilization and determination to move forward, and that is the sort of thing that we saw yesterday.
The Checkpoint is presented by GM Pharma, the first international multinational pharmaceutical company in Georgia. GM Pharma, to serve those who need it most.